April 22nd. That means it is Earth Day here around the world, and it's also our founder, Lydia Teichner. It's Lydia's birthday today. So it's a good day all around here. Just let me know that you can hear me. You'll be able to see me in just a moment. But I see that everybody is chatting over on YouTube and on Facebook. Let me just make sure I can pull up that Facebook feed here on my mobile device to make sure. Yep, I just got the notification, so that's good. And we are ready to go in 3. Let me make sure I look okay. 2, and 1. Everyone, good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you may be. All right, well, as I said, it is Wednesday, April 22nd, and we're celebrating a couple of occasions today. Number 1, Earth Day, and which is great, and also Lydia's birthday, Lydia Teichner, Janice's mom. And you know, when I came on board, I'm going to chat a little bit. So if you're watching this later, there's a little bit of chat before we get to the peyote stitch. So if it's later and you're like, God, I don't want to hear this chat, I want to get to the meat of the design, just keep pushing that slider over and you'll eventually get to the peyote stitching. But I wanted to share with you a couple of memories that I have of the bead shop and when I first came on board. Because, you know, before we were ever online and we bought our URL, I remember the day. I believe it was around 1997, maybe, 1996, 1997. And we had an office manager, her name was Angela, who also happened to grow up around the corner from me in Gilroy, who we still know, our dear Angela, who's now in New York. And Angela comes, you know, she yells out and she says, you know, I have a friend who's kind of going into this internet thing, and, you know, we should buy beadshop.com. Janice and I both happened to be in the office. And, you know, one thing about Janice is when we came to her with harebrained ideas, even like when I came with her to her almost 4 years ago with this harebrained idea of doing live broadcasting, she's like, oh, okay, let's do it. So Angela contacted her friend and we bought beadshop.com. And so ever since that day, you know, it's been evolving, but it first started all back at even before that, over on Middlefield Road in Palo Alto. But then we moved to 177 Hamilton Avenue in Palo Alto, California. Now this was painted by one of Jan's dear friends, Bev, and it hung, and it was to commemorate our old bead shop when we moved. We moved locations in 2000 to the corner of High Street and University Avenue in Palo Alto. And so the bead shop here at 177 Hamilton, and it's hard to see. You can see the little plate there. It always had, Janice's big thing was that she would plant. We had these window boxes here. I'm not turning it the correct way. There we go. That always had flowers and stuff in them, and we had, you know, our awning, and it was the smallest store ever. But that's where we started teaching classes. I started teaching classes there and stuff. And so Janice incorporated and started the bead shop actually in 1982, 1983. And I came on board with her in 1992. And Lydia had just passed away. Janice, tell me, she passed passed away, I think, early in 92. I joined you in August of 92. So I never, ever met Lydia, but I've met Lydia. Janice has told me so many stories about Lydia and about her tenacity and about her business acumen. And it was such a small store. It was 500 square feet. It was great. We had a lot of fun there. And one of the stories that Janice told me that always stuck with me with Lydia, about Lydia, was that they would go into Manhattan and they would buy beads. And back in the day, back in the 80, well, even before, when Lydia was buying for her antique store, before it became the bead shop, it was called Antiques, etc. Janice and Lydia would go on these buying trips and all this kind of stuff. And she and Janice would go to, and at that time there was a place, it's no longer in existence, it was called York Beads. And York, I've been to York, I went to York in the early 90s. But it's these families that have had bead shops or bead manufacturers that had been there since the early 1900s, right? And so Janice would describe how she and Lydia would go and they'd just buy like old, like crumbling bags of stuff, right? And then in a cart march them right back down to their hotel, like right down Broadway, or whatever. So they're really, it's a really cool story, and we'll have to reminisce sometimes with Janice, because she and Lydia, I know, had a lot of adventures together. And some of those vendors that Janice and Lydia cultivated those relationships so long ago, Janice has continued those relationships, and we have still those relationships today. So this was, back then, I mean, you couldn't throw a spool of Ceylon without hitting a bead supplier there. And now there are a lot fewer on the ground. That life has really changed in the bead world. But it's fun to have those memories, for sure. And Janice and I would get to do some of that buying and stuff as well. So the roots here at beadshop.com go way back. And I wanted to share this was the plaque that was on the front of our Palo Alto store. And I remember when we closed the store and we moved from Hamilton Avenue to the corner of University and High Streets, we pulled this right off the building, and then we put this, actually it was on the wall in the classroom in the new store, which was cool. And this is today would be Lydia's 104th birthday. She would be 104 today. And if you opened today's newsletter, you'll see Drea wrote a really nice tribute to her. I have a little packet, and I promise we'll get to peyote stitching, but I've got a little packet here that I want to show you just a couple of things in here, because I think it'll be fun, as long as we're walking down memory lane and honoring Lydia as our founder. Here is, and I'll put it on this. Janice, you're just going to kill me with this, but I don't care. I'm just going to do this. We're going to go for it here. Let me get this positioned. So you guys, I think you guys will just love this. This is from the Palo Alto Times, Tuesday, February 16th, 1988. Bead business to get new store. Here we go. Can you see who that is back in 1988? That's our Janice. Janice Parsons, owner of the 4-year-old bead shop in Palo Alto back in 98. This is when she remodeled the old store. And it's a really funny, it's a great article. The 38-year-old Parsons has been in the bead business since 1984. The store had previously been an antique store called Antiques Etc. and was owned and run by her mother, Lydia Teichner, for 21 years. When Parsons took it over, however, she decided, and I'm reading from right here, she decided the antiques had to go. Okay, so funny. I've got a couple of other things here I wanna share with you. We did these. This was one of my class schedules that I put out from the bead shop. We did have so many schedules. I remember, I don't know, putting together this shoot, right? This photo shoot. We had so many great classes that we'd put out. We would actually mail this, right? There's some of my PMC classes that were there. I still have those PMC pieces somewhere, right? So our class schedule, and see, we'd mail it. Registration begins at 10 a.m. Saturday, September 14th, right? Those were fun times for sure. We'd have ladies just line up for those. I'd have to serve coffee and donuts and to keep people hydrated. Here's one, October. I remember doing this on, I don't know, whatever crazy computer program. But you can see here, we did, about classes. Call Kate from Aunt Richburg, class director, anytime. The phone number is no longer good. But we would do a lot of really fun things and a lot of, trunk show from Jess Imports. Remember those days? Those were fun. We would do a class, and it's still here, pearl knotting, instructor, Janice Parsons. Metal smithing techniques. Janice was like, you are not bringing torches into the store. And what did I do? I brought torches into that store. It was really fun. Silver clay. We did, there's the treasure necklace, tassel extravaganza. So there's nothing new under the sun, you guys. We're still teaching the same old stuff that we taught then. One thing, centerpiece impact, that's what it was called. That big centerpiece necklace, I'd forgotten all about it. That's so funny. This lariat necklace over here, next week is going to be Lariat Week right here. Right here on our live broadcast. We're going to do some fun things there. So it was kind of fun. We did all kinds of really fun classes, and people would just come from all over the world, really, to take our classes. And I want to see if there's one. There might be. I was hoping. Yeah, here it is. One last thing I'll share, and then we'll get to the peyote stitching. But some of you may remember this. This was one of the first mail order bead catalogs in the business, and Janice did the founded 99 Beads, which was the mail order portion. Before we had the internet, we did mail order. And there's a great photo right in here of the old team in the old store. It's kind of hard to see here, but you can pick out Janice, of course, elegantly coiffed, beautifully costumed, as always, right? And that was in our Palo Alto store. There's Mia, who's our first class director. Rita standing right behind Janice right there. There's Rita. She taught Janice how to pearl knot. Winnie, who hired me right here, Winnie Vandren, wonderful artist now in her own right. Tom, who I taught earring design with. This was pre-me, before I came on board. And here's that, look at this, Chinese Zodiac kit. Here's that spider knot I'm going to teach you guys someday how to do. But we would do, look at this, Janice even then loved to create kind of these fun, look at that kit. Isn't that beautiful? Janice, I don't know if you still have one of those necklaces. Yeah, and Ashley, I forgot to mention, there's Ashley right there. Look at how little she was. Young Ashley in the blue t-shirt. So funny. And so we sold, you can see, we had these great illustrations, and we sold all kinds of cool stuff. Some of the same stuff that we still carry today. Look, what a surprise, my precious discs. What can we say? We loved them. So anyway, so I thought you guys might like a little look at some of that in honor of Lydia's birthday. So happy 104, Lydia Teichner. Without you and antiques, etc., we wouldn't be sitting here doing this broadcast. So that's that. So now, you guys, let's get to making. That was kind of a fun little trip down memory lane there. So I'll put this back into the archives, and we'll get some other things out of the archives, which was what we were working on yesterday. Okay, and I want to show you. Look at how messy this is. Right? I don't know if any of those catalogs still exist. I had one. I think I have one in my archives somewhere. And then there's this one. But yeah, gosh, it was so funny. It was so fun. It was great. Such a fun company to work for. We had such a great time. Always a great time. So when we last left this stretch magic piece, and we're going to talk about a few things. And let me tell you, boy, you guys loved these A-dots like there was no tomorrow. And I'm so glad that you loved them as much as we did. So we have more coming on the way, right now, during this time, challenging time for everyone. Everything moves a little bit more slowly, including shipping out and shipping in. So I promise we've got more on the way, so there'll be plenty. And what we need, what you need to do if you want them, and I saw a couple of order notes, and Chris will get back to those order notes as well. But if you order note and you tell me, or you tell us, let me know when they're back in, there's no way we're going to be able to keep track of that, okay? So on the page, when you are ordering, if you go to the page and it says sold out, there's a button on there that says notify me, okay? So when you see that it's sold out, and this goes for any product, and now more than ever, because again, supply chains are tenuous at best, you just want to add yourself to that notification list. And when you get the notification, you guys jump on it, because that will that'll tell you it's back in stock. But not only is it telling you, but it's telling everybody else that's on that notification list, okay, that it's back in stock. So get on it, kids. So there's a question here that Judith has about, can you explain how to size a person's wrist with the stretch bracelet? So let me give you, that's a great question. So let me measure my wrist for you guys here, okay? And my wrist measures, whoops, it's not in the shot there, 6.5 inches, okay? So this stretch bracelet that I made all those years ago is just shy of 6.5. It's like 6 and, I don't know, 6.25. Well, no, maybe it's about 6.5. Close. anyway, right? So something like this when it's wide, okay, this is almost 2 inches wide. It's about 1 3/4 inches. When it's wide like this, right, you kind of have to get it on there, slide it on. And it's a little tight for my 6.5 inch wrist now. My wrist back then I was a little slimmer, including my wrists, but whatever, we're still cute, even if we're not quite as slim as we used to be. So I would make this now, yeah, because it's cutting off my circulation. I would make this for me probably 6 3/4, probably. If it's wide like this, I might add even a full 1/2 inch more to my length. You really just have to experiment, because it also depends on the tension of your beads as well. Some of you may peyote stitch a little bit more loosely, okay? And so you just have to kind of play around with it and see how it works. Again, yesterday, if I can find my notes, oh my God, this table is a mess, or as my friend Jess would say, mess bucket. So, Jess from Jess Imports. I'm glad you guys remember Jess Imports. I'm going to give Jessie a shout out. You can follow her on Instagram right now, Jess Imports. She is making such great jewelry right now, and she is selling such cool stuff and cool charms. So you can check Jess. It's the best place to go for Jessie is to go on Instagram, and you can also check her out. If you do a search for Jess Vintage and Jess Imports online, you'll find her, and she has some great stuff there. We go way back, I'll tell you. So the sample that I made from yesterday, we counted that it was 16 rows equaled the inch, okay? And this was a little wider than an inch. It was 10 beads for the start row, okay? So it's about 1.25 inches, just shy of 1.25 inches, okay? And so here we've got the sample, 10 beads for the start row, 16 rows equals 1 inch, so there's 80 beads per inch here. And you just keep making, keep stitching. That's what I'm going to do, right? So I can start to measure it. And my mom was asking, and she knows this answer. I love it when my mom asks a leading question. Yes, Mama, there is a place online where you can find the blank offset grid. We do have, I think it's under our learning. Let me go to beadshop.com right here, and I'll tell you. I think it's under our learning tab. And Emily made all of these blank templates that, let me just make sure this is right. This is loading for you. There's a bunch of blank templates to draw up your own designs for that. So if you go to beadshop.com, you go to learning, and you go to blank design templates. There are templates there that that Emily has made, and you can download those and draw your own designs. All of the rest of the stretch cord, the 0.5 millimeter, the needles, everything, it's all over at beadshop.com. Okay, and the Stretch Magic, easiest place to find that is, since it's brand new, you can go into new arrivals and it's there, or you can type in Stretch Magic in the search bar, or you can go under stringing materials. Okay, this will all end up in a blog post that Drea is going to make, and then eventually it'll jump over to the website, and Karen will put it up as a project. Okay, so that's that story there. Okay. So like I said with yesterday, we just continue on. Let me get some more black beads here. We're going to continue on, and we're just going to keep peyote stitching, peyote stitching, peyote stitching. I'm going to show you how as I designed this piece, we talked a little bit about this yesterday too, about being kind of freeform with it and not doing some planning. But again, if you like the planning portion of this, download one of those templates and you will be able to kind of create something kind of fun for yourself. Okay? And so I want to show you here as we're going. I'm going to switch threads to the other side. Okay, and I'm going to stitch a few. The cool thing about doing peyote stitch like this is you can go back and forth from the sides. Okay, so I'm going to add some beads here, and then I'm going to weave this piece off. Okay, so you can see it. All right, so I'm just going to get some black seed beads. This is where I started it yesterday. Let me get a little tighter in here so you guys can see this. Okay. And you're pretty much just going backwards in the opposite directions. Oh, I don't know. You guys have captions. Maybe I enabled captions. I don't think I did. Maybe that's a new feature on the Facebook feed. It looks like you guys have captions. Maybe you can turn them off if you don't want to see captions. I don't know. I don't know how that works. I'm sorry. I may have accidentally enabled them. So see now I'm just working from the other side, right? So you don't have to, this stretch bracelet especially does not have to have a definite start and and stop. Cindy Brooke said she had to turn them off. It's under settings. It may be a new default. Going live, every day it feels like it's a new adventure, right? My mom is saying it would be cool to make some quilt block designs into a peyote bracelet, right? It's pretty cool. That would be a pretty cool design way to do this. So I'm just coming in, and I'll probably put in one more row, and now I will weave this back through. Okay. So again, see, if you have that stretch, that space there, you can just kind of pull that first bead in the row down and then pull it up, and it kind of makes everything tight. But again, we don't want to stitch tightness, if that makes sense, into this piece, right? We want it to be firm, but we don't want this stretchy cord to be stretched out. So again, this is the 0.5 millimeter, kind of hard to see with the light there, 0.5 millimeter Stretch Magic, 32 feet. There's plenty of it to work. Okay, so now I'm just gonna weave this back in, right? Because I've got the tail length that I have, might be a little short even, but and this is how you'd weave in for anything, any seed bead thing, really. It's about 5 inches, right? I wish maybe I had 6 inches, but whatever, doesn't matter. I'll go back in and I'll just go with my thread, with my needle, and I'll go 2. And this is the collapsible eye needle. Okay, the Bead-A-Long collapsible eye, because it holds onto the thread, it locks that thread in here. You could use the collapsible or the flexible eye that looks like this. This would work too, but the hole in the eye of the needle, it's thin, but it doesn't have that little locking in mechanism, so it would come off of your thread. So we just come in. So Karen's asking, she has issues with her tension. Too tight, too loose. Any suggestions? Karen, it sounds like you've got other issues going on. No, I'm just kidding. That translate into your bead stitching, right? When you're relaxed, it's too loose. When you're tense, it's too tight. It's just kind of like knitting. I think that we find our I guess our default is what I want to say, right? I have an issue of peyote stitching too tightly because I want to pull all of my stuff in tight, so I don't want it to like fall apart, right? And that's one of the things that Emily taught me during seed bead school is just kind of relax about it. So what I do is I pull my thread tight enough so that I don't like see a lot of thread in between, but I don't want to pull it so tight that my piece is getting warped. Okay, so all you have to do is it really just takes practice, and different stitches go differently. Okay, yes, Karen, you should see my crochet too. I took a crochet class before we were sheltering in place, and the teacher's crochet was like this big, right? It was a little granny square, and mine was like gigantor. So, I think it's all personal issues, right? So just try and adapt it. Make a small little sampler like this that you have no like, you know, what do I want to say? That it's just a sampler. It's not the start of a project, so you're not completely emotionally invested in it, right? And just kind of stitch and practice and stitch and practice. It also, I think, depends on the thread. This stretch thread needs just a little extra pull to pull it into place. But again, if you pull it too much, like see if I really pull it like this, see how this side starts to warp, right? Like this. Pardon me, excuse me, let me get a drink of coffee. I'm not sick. My throat's just dry. Don't freak out. Don't you do that every time you go out in public? If somebody even like almost sort of even clears their throat, you kind of run the other way, don't you? I do. I'll tell you. So see how I am just stitching kind of in the diagonal back and forth here. Okay, and so I'm going to do that several more times, and I change direction. So see, let me put it right up real tight right here, and I go here, and I'll go through like 3 or 4. See that? And then pull it through. Okay, and I want to end, and I do this, well, there's my needle. Let me do it one more time. I'm going to end it right there. Sometimes if your thread is too small, I put my needle through, and then I restring it, and then I can just pull it through right there. Oh, but see, no. What I should have done, see there's that, can you see it? You can't really, but there's a little, the thread path was incorrect. I needed to go through the bead next to it and then down, because I don't want to see any of this stretchy thread. So I just took it out. Let me restring that needle and let me pull it down. Okay, so that's how we change thread. Denise, that's funny. You taught yourself to crochet watching your grandma and mom, so you crochet funny because you were sitting across from them. That's so funny. I crochet funny too. A lot of people, they crochet, they hold the working thread in their non-dominant hand and the hook in their dominant hand, and they just crochet fast, fast, fast like Emily does. I am a thrower when I crochet. So I crochet like a knitter, where I hold my needle like this, and with this hand I throw the thread instead of grabbing it with the needle. And it is it works for me. But again, that's how Gran learned how to crochet. She was a thrower, and so that's how I learned. So it's all in, I think, how we learned as a kid, right? And so here's this, and I'm just going to clip it off. I clip it off a little bit under tension, and so then it just goes back in. And so it's in there. It's not going anywhere. Okay, and then I can continue. If I wanted to add thread here, I do the exact same thing. Okay, I would start my thread, I don't know, maybe here somewhere, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, until I come out here, bring my needle, and then I'm ready to add a bead and continue to go. So if that makes sense. Okay. So that So that's how it's done. That's how you do it. So I'm going to work on this some more this week. If I lay this on my wrist, you can see I've got a ways to go on this. But we're going to revisit this, so don't worry about that. And I know I totally lied to you yesterday when I was talking about what I was going to do today, that we were going to do the Peyote project. That's actually for tomorrow. I should have consulted. I glanced at the calendar. I have like our calendar of what we're doing. And I looked and I read it as Wednesday, but it's actually Thursday. So the Peyote project we're going to look at tomorrow. Okay. So you're going to continue to do this. Okay. Now, tomorrow we're going to look at Peyote. So in advance of that, I want to talk to you about beads that fit with these 8/0. I've got a little more time here, and so I want to share this with you. I want to kind of clean this up. You know what? I'll just use a new board here. Let's see how this looks on camera. It might be a little crazy looking. We'll see. It doesn't look too bad. That background, yeah, I don't like it. It's too yellow. Let me just move all this over. Just bear with me. I know. There's other things to go. Whoops. And of course, was that lid on those black delicas? No. Where are the black delicas now? All over the table. Perfect. Great job, Richbirth. Bear with me here. I'm just going to dump all these beads over into that little box. Whoops, sorry. Hit the camera. Move it over. Okay. Then let's get that. Why don't I just get a second gray pad so I have it with me? I don't know. There we are. Denise, you and I are going to have a crochet off. We'll have to somehow FaceTime or whatever, because I want to see, or I'll do a little film of me crocheting, because it would be fun to know if anyone else is a thrower like I am. I don't know. My mom, I think, crochets regularly. She's a pretty prolific needlewoman herself, but I throw. I don't. I'm a funny crocheter. Okay, so here's this. So the piece that I wanted to point out to kind of get ready, and I've got the Peyote, I've got the samples, but you'll see them tomorrow in the newsletter that Allie made, and I'll pull the ones that Janice did too. But I mentioned this a little bit yesterday about finding beads that fit into these 8/0. And so these 8/0, I love these. These are very similar to that 323 color that we have here. And these little shadows are a great way to, I love peyote stitching with these guys too. So as you are starting out and figuring out what it is that fits in with your peyote stitch, you can do like a little tester, right? Like here's a little tester that I made. And you can come in and take a look and see what's going to fit in there. And see how that little shadow, look at how it just nestles like a little baby in a bassinet right there. I don't know where that image came from, but that's, so it just fits. And you can use your awl too to kind of help you figure that out. Okay. And also remember with these, those 11/0. See how I've got 2 of the 11/0 delicas, right? That fit in it right there too. I also have the regular size shadow. And the regular size shadow, you can see, also fits. I'm going to put that right in there. Also fits really nicely in there as well. Now, the tension, whether you use the little shadow, and you can see the little shadow is a lot smaller. That little shadow is going to pull your piece in just a little bit more, right? There's a little bit of space there, but it's going to pull that piece in a little bit tighter. So can you see, like in this piece here that I did that has the 8/0 and the 11/0, see how it slightly pulls things in because those two 11/0 aren't exactly the same length as those delicas there, right? And then this one with these shadows here, this I made so long ago. These are just slightly larger than our little shadows, but it would still work because see how I just used a small amount of them here? And so even though they pull it in just a little bit, and you can see how it pulls it in a little bit there and there, it doesn't make any difference really, because then you do another strip of regular 8/0 and then you go to that other small strip here. Okay. So there's that. Then if you're doing a section, like here's this one, I've done that same section of shadows and 11/0 here, but then you can see I started when I do a series of peyote with the shadows, I'll do it first with the delicas and then I'll just come in and do the peyote stitching with the shadows. Either way, but the connection will be a little weird, but the shadows are kind of, different sizes, so it's really okay. You'll get, and this goes back to the tension question that we had earlier about, how to kind of regulate your tension a little bit, from Karen was asking. And you just kind of start to play around with it. This I strung on KO, I think, from way back in the day. But this, I think, would also, this is kind of my pièce de résistance here. This one is strung on micro, like the gunmetal micro. And when you use a thicker thread, it fills up that tube of the 8/0 a little bit more full. So the distortion is kept at a minimum, if that makes sense. Okay, so all of these shadows, these are old silver beads. Your silver shadows will work just the same way as these do. And you can see I've interspersed them throughout. And we're going to tackle this bracelet sometime together. But I love the way this looks. I love it, love it, love it. Okay, and you can make it as thin as you want. This is ridiculously wide. It's a really super wide cuff. And again, in my slimmer days, I still like wearing wide cuffs, doesn't matter. But this is 2 inches in width. Okay, so, and again, you can see some of the distortion is happening here in this one, but that's okay. Just let it be. Let it distort. Okay. Now, I wanted to show you a couple more things before I sign off on this. And again, we're going to keep it still peyote week, so don't stress. We're going to do the peyote stitch all week. I'm not going to do a knot on Friday like I usually do. I'm going to do a knot next week because next week is going to be lariat week, and we're going to start the week off with a knot. But we're going to finish this off with the peyote stitch. But I wanted to show you a couple of things. I pulled out my archive box. I went into the back, into the shelves, and pulled out the box that said peyote stitch. And I just did it right before the broadcast. And I wanted to show you guys because peyote stitch is a great, now you've seen me do it before with the freeform, right? And we've done freeform things. Allie did that great freeform piece. You can freeform with peyote stitch, and I think it looks awesome. This I started, I don't know, the ultimate in never finishing a piece, right? This piece is probably close to, I don't know, 15 years old, right? And can you see I've got some long beads here, a bunch of different beads. But people always ask, well, how do I start something like that? And so you can go back, look at some of our freeform. But in that archive box, I also, these long tube beads, I don't know, they're from my collection of random beads. That's why when you see beads that you like, get them, because they don't, I don't know, we could hunt our heads off and never find that bead. I think it's a copper bead from way back in the day. But also in that archive box next to this piece, I had a little spice jar. And the spice jar is my color palette. And so you can palette, I palette like this all the time with these little jars. So these beads haven't seen the light of day in 15 years probably, right? Some of them like look at that coil spacer, right? It's tried and true. We still have those, right? Freshwater pearls, just a bunch of little random things, right? But they all kind of work in this color palette, and so that's what I was using to recreate this piece. Okay, so if you're not ready to jump, it's like, oh my gosh, I've got, don't feel the pressure of, oh, I've got to, sit down and start stitching this right away and making this correct right off the bat. You don't have to, right? Just start doing the little paletting. And yeah, can you see like there's a big hole left here with the tube like that, right? It's held together here, and then I strung here, and then I continued to peyote stitch over here on this side. Yeah, there's some beads that we'll never find again. Look at that little faceted garnet. Remember, Janice, we used to carry those. Those were so good. And look at these carved garnet. Yeah, that's an oldie but a goodie. But our wampum would work. Our wampum beads are so cool, and Janice just linked some. But our wampum beads are really cool, tube beads. But something like this, just throw, it is the ultimate kind of in bead soup, right? That you can just kind of throw in this little jar and just, maybe someday I'll finish this or not, whatever, but at least it's all there together. I wanted to show you a couple of other things peyote related, right? And you've seen me show you these before, but in the newsletter today, Drea shared these peyote stitch stacks, right? These tube beads, right? Like this. These are fast and easy too. Like if you don't want a long-term commitment to peyote stitching something, and make them instead of 8/aughts, make them in 11/aughts, or even make them in 6/aughts. Doesn't matter, right? But they are really fast and easy to do. And this broadcast we did, it's linked in the newsletter, but you'll find this under, they're called I don't know. You guys will find it and put it in the link. But if you also go to, I'll tell you, I've got it here. Let me go to Bead Shop. Let me go under projects. Let me go under bracelets. And let me scroll down here, and it is under, I'm scrolling, I'm continuing to scroll down. I know they're here somewhere, unless they're under Seed Bead School. That's where they could also be. I may have just missed them. I'm trying to do this so fast. Under Learning, go under Learning, go under Seed Bead School. Yes, Beaded Bead Stacks, that's where they are, right? Beaded Bead Stacks is what they're called. And then this one here is the one that Emily did. It's also a peyote stitch. This guy right here, can you see it? I'm not in the shot. And they're also really fun to do. And these are just done with the 2mm. Oh, there it is, Beaded Bead Stacks. I was just looking too fast. And so they're a fun, fast way to work on these as well. So these are also, and that 2mm hematite cube is a really fun one to work with. Okay, and then lastly, and a couple of people have used these in their wrap bracelets. If you go on the bead table, you can see that a few people have made these peyote stitch beads from the beaded stacks and put them on their wrap bracelets, and they just look like $1 million. I just love them, and I love the way that they look together all stacked up. The last thing I wanted to show you before we part ways today is this pile of peyote stitch beads. We talked about the peyote stitch bead a little bit yesterday, and I've done it. This is the project here. Let me move these over. And I think it was a Free Tip Friday, but you can also find it. Let me see. I know it's seed bead projects. If we go to necklaces, you'll find these. It's just the seed beads, the freeform seed beads, and I think it's actually over on our blog. Yeah, we've got the knitted bead, but we've done that freeform seed bead a lot on our Free Tip Fridays and stuff. So Drea will link all of these into the blog post, and I want to see if this actually will go up as a project. I'll put this onto Karen's list. But this was such a fun one to do. But the peyote stitch beads, you can't really go wrong. And with that freeform, you see a few here. These were in my archives as well. Then you can see they're not finished. Some are kind of finished. Let me hold it up a little bit more tightly so you can see it. Right, there we go. And you just start by putting some spokes of thread down. Do an even count of circle beads of the a round strip of the beads around, and then you just start doing your freeform around it, right? Pardon me. So it's pretty easy and fun to do. You can see this one has a big, kind of a crazy bulbous kind of freshwater pearl and stuff there. So you can't do any mistakes when you're making these. And it's just a bead, right? So it's small. So you don't, there's not a lot of time invested in this, okay? And you can see here, this one has the 11-aught delicas, then it goes to the 8-aughts, and then there's like some 4mm fire polish in there. So, you just kind of jump in and tighten everything up. I wanted to show you these beads here. And Carrie's asking real quick, and I wanted to address this. Are we ever supposed to pre-stretch stretch magic thread? You've seen it on so many other tutorials. When I'm stitching with this stretch magic, this piece, let me get it here. When I've stitched this piece, kind of the stitching as I go, I kind of stretch it a little bit. The thing about stretching the stretchy cord is you don't want to overstretch and stretch the same out of stretch the stretch out of it. Does that make sense? Right? Like a rubber band, right? If you continue to pull a rubber band open, pull a rubber band open, pull a rubber band open, it's going to eventually use its stretch. Okay? So don't, and especially when you're working with this and when you're stringing with it, don't string the stretch into it, okay? And you'll be fine. This one, that's the 20-year-old bracelet, the black one, I didn't pre-stretch this for sure, right? And it's fine. So, but let me show you these other beads over here, are these freeformers. All right, these are some necklaces that I've made that I've had in my archive for a while and I was super into it, right? into making these. And so I thought I would do something today before I signed off. I just have a few minutes before I have to go. These, again, I made them when I was a little slimmer, on the slimmer side, right? So they don't fit me too much as well. But I love these beads. And we all talk about jewelry that we love or jewelry that we refashion. So it's time to, because look at all these peyote stitch beads that I have here. Wouldn't these be great in like one big, like giant long statement piece? And yes, I think so. So I'm just going to, let's look at these. Great, they're lovely. Let's cut them up. Okay, I know, I heard that collective gasp coming from all the way across the pond, right? But I've got some lampwork beads here that I've made. You know, I made these so long ago. They're on soft flex, right? So they were going to last until the next millennium probably, right? So just look at, now look what I have to work with. And let's cut this other one up too. All right, let's do it. Bam. This is the necklace when I wore to Rita Moreno's house, which is a whole other story. She looked at it and said, that's the most beautiful necklace I've ever seen. And then I got to hold all of her awards, including her Tony, which was exciting. I'll tell you that story someday. So now look, done, cut up. Yes, look at that. These are on wire. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to cut them up too. They've been on these wires, I don't know, 20 years. Let's get it. Who cares? Some people do quarantine haircuts, right? I'm doing quarantine bead rehaul, right? So don't be afraid to cut things up if you want them. And I want them. I want these beads to be free in a thing so I can restyle them somehow. Right? So let's get all of this little wire, right? Like this. And so now I have this pile of, look, I took photos of them, right? I could recreate them. The beads are still here. They haven't gone away. They're just in a little bit of a different form. That's all right. Look at these lampwork beads I made so long ago. Those were pretty good beads if I do say so myself. I got to get my torch back out, right? Now I have these old rutilated quartz nuggets that, again, right, they're kind of cool. This old amber, copal amber, which is gorgeous. These old Tibetan beads here. So now I have something different, right? The sum of these parts, right? So I can now, you know, restring this maybe in a long, in a really long kind of cool piece, to kind of play around with that. But I wanted to do this, and I wanted to do this on camera to show you that these are just fun little like cocoons, little fun things that you can do, and you can get the wood beads. We carry the wood beads right here at Bead Shop, and again we'll link it. I'll have Drea will add it all to the blog post, so don't don't worry. And it's not, Leslie's saying, oh my gosh, all that work into making the beads. The beads are still the beads, right? They can be easily restrung into something else, right? I think I will. I think I'll kind of redo this, refashion it into something new. But it's really freeing to do something like that, right? And so just jump in. If you have some jewelry that's just sitting there that is not giving you joy, cut it. Instead of giving yourself a quarantine haircut, cut up some of your jewelry instead. Right. I have stood in front of the mirror with the scissors in my hand at least twice now, but I'm going to try and hold out. I can hold out until we're out of quarantine. But cutting up your beads is also fun. And you can see here, then I can just reclaim these clasps here. and I'm ready to go. Okay? So don't be afraid to cut things up and have things go into a new form, which is really what I want to say, because get those things out. There's no time like the present to just use these things up. And so when you see a bead that you like, grab it, get it, okay? And keep it in your stash, just like my little jar. Where did my little jar go? My little jar of goodies here that go with this bracelet here. Okay, so they're all together like that, right? So I want you guys to continue to stitch on. Yeah, that felt super freeing. I'm so excited to see all those beads laying there together. I'll take some photos of them. But I want you to continue on. You can see the black beads went all over the place because I didn't put the lid on. And so just continue to stitch. Continue to kind of size it on your wrist. And then when we close it up, and this is just like the peyote stitch bead really that Emily made, you just seriously just zip it up. I need one more row here, and I could just zip it right there together. But we're going to keep working on this one. Tomorrow, we are going to look at, in this same kind of spirit of, you know, mixing your beads and mixing different styles and putting different things together, we are going to work with the O Peyote project, which I'm really excited to share with you. Ali Mori made some of the projects that we're using tomorrow, and I have also Janice's pieces that she did, and we're going to look at those, and we're going to kind of see how those all go together, and we're going to continue looking at our peyote stitch skills. Okay. Pardon me. Sorry, my throat's a little dry. I need to continue to hydrate with this coffee. But then we're going to get into that, and I think it's going to give you some more ideas about what's going on there. And then Friday, we're going to wrap up this whole peyote stitch extravaganza, if I can see the forest through the trees on my table. And then next week, we're going to start the week off with a knot that I'm going to teach you on Tuesday. And then next week we're going to talk about lariats, because lariats are perfect for spring. They're kicky like a scarf, and I think it'll be really fun. The earrings I'm wearing, thanks for noticing, these were made for me, and I'll show you. These were made for me by back when I owned my bead store in the Mission over in San Francisco at Bellissimo. And they were made for me by a student of mine, and this is, I think, paper clay that she made and formed and then painted back in 2007. She gave me these, and they're very kind of Frida-esque. They're kind of fun and bright, and so I wanted to just wear them to be a little brighter today. I put on a kicky scarf from my scarf collection, as usual, and then I saw these hanging on my earring rack, and I said, I'm going to wear those today. So, goals from today. Keep working on that peyote. Check out all of our freeform peyote resources that we have. The wood beads are great. We have a lot of great wood beads. I think 3 different sizes. They're perfect for doing this little kind of freeform. If you don't want to jump in onto a big piece, you can do a smaller piece with the freeform. Go through your jewelry. If you have some necklaces that are not giving you joy, cut them off, cut them up, return them to their original, some of their parts, the beads, and reuse them. Third thing is, you find a bead you like, buy it. You know, buy as many as you think you might want, because a lot of times those beads will never ever be seen again. So stay the course, ladies. That's what, ladies and gentlemen, sorry, Curtis, and my wonderful bead dudes that are out there. I didn't mean to say to exclude you. So stay the course, bead people. That's what I want to say. The happiest of birthdays to our founder, Lydia. Again, without you, we would not be here. We would not be doing this broadcast. The other thing is that we would not be here, you guys, if it was not for you. So you can go to beadshop.com for information on everything that we do on these broadcasts. If we are out of anything that you find that you like, that you want, we're getting it back in. So put yourself on the notification list, all right? And a newsletter will, an email will come out and let you know as soon as they're back in. I see my friend Tanya jumped on. Tanya, I miss you too. I miss seeing your face. And Pam, I gave you a big shout out on the bead table. Thank you so much for that treat that you sent to Chris and I. We love that coffee, and those pineapple hard candies are already almost gone. They're in a bowl on Chris's desk. So, again, thank you so much for joining me. Peyote Week is really shaping up, I think. And tomorrow we will continue with Oh Peyote. Check your newsletter because the projects will be up and you'll get a list to everything that you need for that one. So hang in there, you guys. We're feeling good. We're feeling strong. We're feeling healthy. Hang in there. Stay the course. Keep that social distancing. Wash those hands. And I will see you tomorrow, Thursday, April 23rd, for the continuation of Peyote Stitch Week with the Oh Peyote project. It's a classic. Thanks so much, you guys. I'll see you tomorrow.